All right. Praise the Lord. Great. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I'm Lama Rod. For those of you who are new, welcome to this space, Medicine Buddha space, or whatever we're doing now. It's Medicine Buddha and whatever I want to talk about for 2 hours. But that's not, for those of you who are new, that's not what's going to happen, and if you believe that, thank you. I really appreciate that. Trusting me is really important, but that's actually really a really interesting thing, because so much of this path is really like about learning how to be skillful with the ways in which we just kind of like don't want to get free. And sometimes you have to I'll just say my teacher has definitely lied to me about some stuff in the past because he knew that I would just not do it, any other way. One favorite thing is oh, 3-year retreat is really easy. It's just like Buddhist summer camp course. It really wasn't, but wherever gets you in. But in any case, yeah, it's good to kind of resurface again this month and next month. I'm just kind of in and out, but in May I'll be back more regularly for sure. And so tonight, I'm just going to introduce just the next piece of the mantra practice for those of you who are doing it, and it's not really a big addition to that, and then we'll get into practice. But first, just to make sure I have time, are there any questions, particularly about practice, that you may have to kind of start us out, just to make sure I get to them? And happy spring equinox as well. Yes, spring equinox. Any questions, you can type them into the chat, or you can ask them directly to you can unmute or be unmuted. And we'll have, and then I'll definitely save time at the end for any questions as well.
Folks should be able to unmute themselves, so feel free to just go ahead and ask if it's on the heart.
I have a question. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I've been practicing for a long time, and I'm just really sort of coming to terms with the fact that I don't
In the
really.
meantime, I was going to put the link for
Apologies, Lama Rod, can you hear Clementine?
Google Doc.
Can anyone hear me? Oh, that's good. Some thumbs up. Lama Rod, can you hear me?
Okay. So anything coming up for anyone? Yeah, particularly questions about the mantra too, that would be great. Here's a question. If I'm not asleep during mantra practice, at least I don't think so, what is happening? If I'm not asleep during mantra practice, what is happening? So you can be zoning out, right? Or you could be kind of elevating into a higher state of consciousness as well. So if you're not aware, but you're not asleep, then you're probably kind of zoning out, which is not uncommon, right? Which is a kind of numbness in the practice of meditation. I can't hear anyone, which is borderline preferable, right? But maybe there's something wrong. So is there a sound thing? Is it? I don't think yeah, it's nothing plugged up. Wait, let's see. Yeah, I think I am good. Wait. Okay, say something now.
Test, 1, 2, 1.
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, hey, the mysteries unfold. And however it wants to unfold now, but before we started solving this mystery, Clementine was asking a question, and so I want to make sure Clementine has a chance once again.
Well, okay. So I feel discouraged, but also like some clarity about the fact that I don't think I'm going to have any real fundamental transformation. I've been at it for a long time, and maybe I will, but I don't feel like I'm going to. It certainly isn't happening. And I have tears in my eyes just as I'm saying that, like, wow, maybe that's true. And just wondering what you think about that, what you say
Yeah.
about that.
Well, as always, I've talked about this a lot. I think we get too agenda oriented. Like there's too many goals, right? And that's a hard thing because, you come into this path, you have all these goals. Like, of course, the ultimate goal is to get awakened, is to get enlightened, right? But you have to have that goal, but at the same time, you can't have the goal at the same time. And that is Tantra in a nutshell, right? You have to go for it, but you can't go for it, right? And you have to find the middle way, which is the Heart Sutra, right? So form is emptiness, emptiness is form. That doesn't make any sense. It's not supposed to make any sense, right? Because the way that samsara perpetuates itself is by tricking us into trying to make it make sense. And it doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. So let go of that and say, you know what, I'm going to get enlightened, but I'm not going to try. But I'm going to practice really hard, but I'm not going to practice really hard at the same time. You see where I'm going? Like it's driven by contradictions, and you think you're just kind of swerving from extreme to extreme. You're actually not. Like what's actually happening is a deeper process that you actually aren't aware of, right? So you talk about, oh, I haven't experienced anything significant. What you actually are, right? But you're not terribly aware of that, and this is where faith comes in. Like as we practice, we have to continue to believe that whatever I'm doing is having a deep impact and a deep change, right? And I may not sense it or see it now, but I will eventually. And sometimes we practice for a very, very long time, absolutely, without seeing any signs of fruition, and then something happens and you're like, oh, that's different. Like I have a different reaction here. There's more space with this and it's worth it because that's irreversible change, right? So it's like you have to let go of any hope of getting free in order to get free, right? And that's where you have to start figuring out how to practice. Like I just have to practice and stop thinking about it. I have to stop thinking about trying to get anywhere and just do it. That's the grueling part of this, is that you just have to do it, right? And you just keep doing it. And you want to get to a point, right, in practice where all this is deeply internalized, meaning that like you no longer, that the discipline of practice is internalized, which means that you're no longer thinking about practice, you're just doing it. It's as automatic as breathing, right? You don't, for many people, right? Some of us do, of course, but for a lot of folks, like, um, our breathing isn't something we think about doing. It just happens, it's autonomic nervous system, right? And it's just happening. We don't think about our hearts beating, that our hearts just beat. Another part of our nervous system takes care of that without us having to be conscious of it. That's how practice has to become. Like it's just automatic, it's natural, it's just happening. I'm not thinking about it anymore. Right? If I'm not thinking about it anymore, then I let go of this idea of wanting to get anywhere. And that allows me to be right in the present moment, right in the moment, just allowing everything to rise and fall. Like that's the most important place for us to be. It's like just really in the moment, holding space for everything, naming everything, experiencing everything. That's all we're doing. And then once we get there, then everything else starts to happen. Right? Then enlightenment or awakening, or you start moving through the different levels of awakening, the jhanas, you would say, in early Buddhist study, or Theravada Buddhism, like this kind of, you start moving through these subtle levels of consciousness, which are quite subtle, right? But it's not something you can name and say, oh, I'm moving into the second jhana or the third jhana, right? Which, I really doubt, you go to, insight, Vipassana retreats and everything. You hear a lot about the jhanas, right? But like really, people don't really, like, you have to be quite far down the path or quite awakened to really even notice the subtleness of the jhanas. Like all this is really quite abstract, work to begin with. Like someone was like, oh, I think I'm just gonna create 10 levels of awakened consciousness, and then I'm gonna like write it down and destroy all the other work from other people to make sure that my work survives. And then I'm gonna like threaten some monastic colleges to make sure my stuff is taught. I mean, I don't want to get too negative about this, but this is how like, religious spiritual canons survive. Like you just eliminate other systems of thought. Now I'm not saying to, I don't want to put a whole bunch of doubt, in the path, but like this is tantra, right? This is tantra here. Like if you're not dealing with doubt, you're not practicing. Everything has to be negotiated, everything has to be related to, you have to be in a relationship to every single thing that arises, right? Because this is a path of actually learning how to consume poison, and transform it into medicine. This is what we're doing. So we're not avoiding anything, even the doubts. Make doubts a part of the path. But in any case, I think we take some of this literature to, to literally, really, it's so subtle, and I just, at this point, I don't believe that there's like one single way to describe anything. As you will see in my next book, in New Saints, right? I'm just like, how about I describe it in the way that makes sense for me, right? Which may be completely different than you've ever heard of, right? Which is fine, you know. So anyway, going back to the question, right? So the question again is, you have to let go of all of this needing for something to happen. That's a tough thing here. Like you have to let go of goals, because when we have goals, it creates this tension in our practice, which is like we're being forced into a particular way of becoming that actually may not be appropriate for us, right? The path to enlightenment isn't this straight and narrow path into enlightenment. The experience of enlightenment is this wide open field that you're zigzagging through. and wandering through. And sometimes you're going backwards, sometimes you're off to the left, going somewhere, who knows where, right? But it's just a zigzag, like that's it, right? And if we get so narrowly defined, we don't allow this path that's taking us all over the place to actually become the path itself. Like, it's not the goal that we're trying to get to, is how we're changing as we're moving along this particular path towards awakening. So get lost on the path, and then once you get lost, then awakening happens. Quite surprising. It just kind of surprises you. It's the analytical mind, it's the part of the mind that thinks it knows what's happening, and it actually doesn't. No, we don't really know what's happening. So we have to start suspending this idea that we can know everything and start resting within space itself, which is actually always trying to hold us and to take care of us, but we're so terrified of it. And this is what we're trying to do too, in terms of canons. Like we are trying to figure out, we're trying to make this make sense for us, not in a way that's made sense for other cultures for thousands of years. Like I'm not Tibetan. I love Shantideva, right? But I'm not Shantideva, right? I want to be a bodhisattva, but like I live in, this day and age, right? And Shantideva didn't have to deal, with being descended from enslaved people and historical trauma, and living in a world where like we create layers of illusion because of technology. Like they didn't have to deal with this. So I have to deal with that. And I have to create a different dharma, right, to address, right, what's happening now, right? And if you want to talk about American dharma, like you have to practice a dharma that takes into account, the realities of this land. Like not Tibet. That's another reality, or whatever, the tradition we're coming out of. Like I'm practicing on this land, and this land has a history and a narrative, and any system of liberation is based on the land, based on the earth, right? Because the earth is the foundation that actually supports awakening. So if we're not taking into account the consciousness of the land, the history of the land, with its violence and genocide, with everything, then like you're not actually practicing a dharma that's indigenous to your life. I know people don't want to deal with that, but as I will say over and over again, like everything has to be held, everything has to be cared for, everything has to be loved, which is another way of saying everything has to be held in order for awakening to happen. Like I can't say, I don't want to deal with this shit over here and think you're going to get free. Like you'll get free with this stuff, and then you have to get free from this shit over here, because you haven't incorporated into a kind of wholeness, as again, Lauren Hill, everything is everything, like everything isn't everything yet, so that was a really long answer to that. The earth is the foundation of awakening. The earth is the structure, the foundation, the ground, right? Like space, yeah, we need space, but we also need the structure of earth, the foundation of earth as well, right? Particularly because you don't know how to be in relationship with space yet. So you keep looking at space as this terrifying thing, and it's actually not. But the earth is supporting us to help us develop a relationship to space itself. It's like a gradual thing, right? And awakening is this is a gradual process, bit by bit, right? And so much, again, just going back to the question, like so much, again, that gets in the way is this agenda, and the agenda takes our attention away from actually what's happening for us in the moment and wraps us up into like this need for something else to happen, because that's ego. When we want something to happen, that's ego actually coming in and saying, you know what, this is what needs to happen, but it's actually not, because when the ego is directing something that is actually about firming itself up, instead of actually dissolving fixation. I hope that was helpful. It was helpful for me. I have a whole chapter on practice in the new book, which, I just, a lot of this is in there, So another mantra question: during mantra practice, should the bulk of my attention be on the words of the chant, my body, or imagery, or something else? So for this, like, there is, at the beginning of the practice, like, yeah, it's, the mantra is an anchor, absolutely. So you can pay attention to the sounds of the words, right? That's an important part of the practice. But over time, the mantra becomes, the sound of the mantra, the words of the mantra becomes just the energetic expression of all phenomena over time, right? So everything becomes an expression of the mantra, which is to say that everything becomes an expression of the deity, which is to say that everything becomes an expression of emptiness itself, right? But at the beginning, yeah, you can use the mantra, as an anchor, and then splitting some of that attention with, some of the imagery, that we do as well. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful as well. Physical pain. I'm wondering about physical pain that is spiritual in nature. Well, all pain can be spiritual, actually. I mean, this is all about view here. Like, either everything is expression of emptiness, which means that everything is sacred, or everything is just this materialistic kind of thing that's getting in the way of me feeling better. So either way, like, you can take on any view, but the tantric view is that everything is expression of emptiness, even the things that are most annoying, right? Until we realize the nature of all phenomena, we're just going to be in a lot of suffering. Pain will always be an experience as long as we're embodied, right? Pain will be there, but the nature of pain changes when we begin to view pain as an expression of emptiness. But anyhow, and then wondering physical pain. For example, I'm having somatic experiences of discomfort that I would not describe as medical symptoms, right? Like, they feel connected to stress, but almost as an existential stress. Thought I mentioned, in case someone wants to speak to this, is, yeah. So, yeah, and when we're doing mantra work, right, or energy work, so the energy body, so what we're doing in Tantra is awakening the energy body, or the subtle energy body. So the energy body that consists of the chakras, or the nadis, and the channels, and the central channel that runs up, through the spine. We're working and practicing to awaken the energy body, which is to say, we're working to clean out and to flush out the channels and pathways, and to get energy moving naturally and effortlessly. And so right now, we feel very material and very solid because, energy isn't flowing well. It's not moving through the energetic body in the way that it should be. And that's just why we do the practice that we do. This is why we do yoga. This is why we do breath practice and so forth, and visualizations, all of that, to get this energy moving. And once the energy body begins to awaken, it's going to start pushing against the physical body. And so when we start experiencing this kind of existential pain, it's actually the energy body pushing against the physical body. Like the energy body is awakening, taking up space, the physical body is going to feel that, And so this is why, again, yoga, but like just exercise, strength training, is really important, which is not emphasized so much, but one of the things that as you deepen into these practices, you have to kind of like start getting into like working out, because the physical body takes on more labor to support the awakening energy body, So at the beginning, like, yeah, you feel tired, you feel achy, right? But once you start training the body more, of course, yoga can be used for that, right? It starts actually conditioning the physical body to hold the energy, the awakening energy of the energy body. Um, and so,
Maddie has her hand up.
okay, great. Go ahead.
Hey, Lama Rod.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I just have one other question. I feel like you've already maybe touched on this, but I wanted to get specific about working with the Medicine Buddha mantra and Palden Lamo. And I'm just noticing that so I'm committed, I do the practices, but there are days when it just looks very different. Like some days I'm able to like get up, sit in front of my altar, and it's like a very different version of me. And then other days I'm just exhausted and it looks like I'm practicing internally while I'm laying down in bed. And I just wondered, just as we start to work with these energies and like considering that, building that relationship and like what respect looks like when building those relationships. I just wondered if you could speak to that, because I want to show up every day like that, and just the realities of being a Black femme in this world.
Well, that's it. It goes back to everything that I've kind of been, well, mostly what I've been mentioning is that like you have to be gentle with these expectations, right? That like you have to figure out what practice is, right? And form is important. So getting up, sitting from the altar, yeah, that's an expression of form. Like there's a containers and form, but like that's not the practice necessarily. That's the preparation for practice. But if you get up and sometimes you're like, I just can't get out of bed, I don't want to get out of bed, then you turn your mind to Palden Lama, you turn your mind to Medicine Buddha, right? That's the point. Like the point of all of this is how naturally can I turn my mind to the deity, right? Instead of thinking that I have to go through some procedure or some method to get to the deity. Like we're going straight to Medicine Buddha now, and it's only a thought that gets us there, but the more expectations you have around what practice looks like, the harder it will be to sustain that, because again, you're creating this idea of what practice is, and it has nothing necessarily to do with what we're actually trying to do here, which is just like, think about the deity, sit with the deity, right? Become the deity, which is just a thought. You can just do it now. I am Medicine Buddha. There you go. There's your practice. Can I dwell in that thought for as long as possible? Right? That's the practice. There you go. Right? And because you've done that, you've created a lot of really, quite powerful energy. We would maybe say merit or karma, but it's great karma. It's not merit until like there's a deeper intention around that energy. But yeah, this is the practice, right? Right. And to say, yeah, I can be in the world, I can be Black, I can be femme, I can be anything, right? But at the end of the day, these are just performances. Like, this isn't essentially who I am, right? So this goes back again to the Heart Sutra, I am and I'm not, right? And to be, we should only be when that being allows us to be free, you know, not an obstacle. Right, again, that's the deity, that's Paul and Lama, actually, like that kind of fierceness, right? That says, like, here I am, you know, and you can eat it. And that's all it has to be. It's not, you know, you just look at the protectors and it's like fire and swords and blood and severed heads. I mean, that's really wonderful. But what the iconography is really suggesting is that, like, I'm gonna be, regardless of what samsara, the carceral state, throws at me. And it doesn't have to be this aggressive thing. This is the thing. It doesn't have to be a production. Doesn't have to be dramatic. It's like saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to be, and I'm going to choose joy as a way to support and protect this space. Not the anger, not the aggression, but the joy, which is such a restorative way of being in the world. Right? And the joy, again, is an expression of space, which is the expression of our minds, expression of the deity. Joy can be fierce, right? Because it's uncompromising. Yeah, it's great questions.
Thank you, Lama Rod.
You keep doing it. Keep going for it. And let's see. I see Fan is here. So I can definitely say I'll see you all next month in the UK. Yeah, I love this from DP. One of my first yoga teachers said the asana is preparing the body for meditation. Yeah, you know, Swami Jayadevi says that it's like you have to train the body to hold Shakti, you know, and that's so much of what yoga is. Like, we have to train physically to hold this awakening energy, you know, Shakti, you know, this cosmic feminine love and you know, saturated, you know, force, right? Like, there has to be this collaboration and partnership between the physical body and the energy body, right? And there has to be some kind of training. And, you know, it reminds me of Harriet Tubman, which, you know, I know some of you have been reading Spring's book, you know, which is really wonderful, but one part of Harriet's life that I actually, you know, learned from Spring was that she, you know, she knew that she was going to leave. She knew she was going to escape. And so for many years on the plantation, she took on jobs that were physically demanding because she was actually training herself to leave. And so that's a part of Harriet's life that we don't really examine, but she was like she was an athlete, essentially, because she knew that the work of liberation was as much physical as it was spiritual. Like, she was ready spiritually, you know, but you have to be more than just spiritual in this realm. You have to be physical. There's a physicality here, right? You know, that we have to pay attention to. Of course, this all depends on the goal, right? If we want to get free and experience these levels of liberation, then again, like I said, everything has to be brought to the path, including the body, you know. Okay, I think, yeah, we talked about in Spirit Underground as well. So just quickly, with the mantra, so you see the second, the addition to the mantra practice on the sheet there on the doc. So at the end, so you're going to go through the same process, right? But this time, as Medicine Buddha awakens in the heart center, I'm adding visualizing the mantra circle rotating clockwise around Medicine Buddha and the heart center, right? And that's going to create and generate a different experience for you. So for some of us, that's going to feel maybe heavy or painful in the heart center, but that's going to start churning up. Of course, that's activating the heart center even more as well. But that kind of, which is, again, it's not about fully visualizing the circulating mantra wheel, but it's like, again, just having the conviction or the thought that this is happening is enough, right? And then you just go through the mantra as you do, and then you finish it in exactly the same way, right? Yeah, it's all in the same document. Okay. I think that's all the questions here. There's someone who has their hand raised. I don't see them, but I don't think anyone is doing that. Let's see. So just to finish up this piece here, and of course, there's something about, I mean, since this is the spring equinox, like, I just feel like blooming, so we might just do some blooming practice. Some of you have already done this practice. I just have different names for practices, right? But yeah, this kind of like, and the times that I've been here the past month or so, we've been working on absorbing energy, right? Which I think this is often like the part of the work of winter is to rest and to absorb. As we move into spring, is how do you start radiating some of that energy, right? And that's the reverse. Like we've rested and now we're beginning to awaken. What does that feel like? But not a drastic awakening, but just a very slow, gradual awakening, or a gradual kind of shifting into activity, into movement, into doing, right? So let's begin. Is someone's heart going boom? Someone's booming. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Who said that? Oh, Fen. Boom. Huh, that's really interesting. Is anyone else having that experience? Maddie, okay, I see you. You're right in my screen. What does that mean?
Just feel my heart like.
Oh, because of, yeah, well, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, you're getting activated. So I was doing something. Um, yeah. And that's like the shift, like that, like these energy shifts, right? Like you can register those shifts, and it's not always through the heart. I mean, we can register energy through different sensations, right, in the body, also mentally, as well. So one of the things that you're trying to figure out is like, what are the signs that your body or your mind is offering you to communicate certain things happening, you know? Um, and I think that's a really important practice, and it just takes time, right? What does it mean, like goosebumps? Like, that's a really common physical, thing that people get. What is when you get goosebumps? What's happening? Start paying attention. Like, why are you feeling this way? Right? Because it's kind of goosebump. It's like it's energy. Like we're sensing energy, right? We're connecting to frequencies, and our physical body is giving us a sign that we're connecting to that. So what are we really connecting to? What's happening in the space around us? And if you can figure that out, that becomes a really important tool for us, to move through the world and to like figure out when we're unsafe or when we, are in trouble or whatever, right? Um, but yeah, so the awakening, the blossoming practice, like which is like, how do we just unfold and how do we blossom? What does that mean for us? How do we just blossom? And often, I've taught this, with imagining that we're flowers, like we're just beautiful flowers just blooming, and the sun, of course, the light represents the consciousness of Medicine Buddha, the nature of reality itself, and to begin to blossom in the light and the inner energy of the nature of all phenomena into emptiness itself, right? Which is, of course, emptiness is the core practice, or developing a relationship to emptiness is the core practice of Tantra, which is really seductive. Like when you learn how to do it, it's very seductive to feel like the opening into the safety and the spaciousness of like the essence itself, right? Right. So there's so much cement to push through. Y'all are very like descriptive tonight. I like that. I'm a writer. I love these like words, this language, this adjectives. So, this is about getting, it's actually not about pushing through anything. It's just like letting it be there. Like you can blossom and still feel that, the cement or, what have you. Like when I'm moving through this practice, again, the goal isn't to get rid of anything. The goal shouldn't be to push through anything. You're not pushing, you're not moving, you're just awakening. It has to be real simple, like you're making it too complicated, right? Of course, there's a lot of labor to get to the simplicity of practice. Like I know that personally, I know that like it's taken decades of practice to come back to just sitting and feeling Medicine Buddha. right? Because at the beginning, I had no idea what medicine Buddha was. I had no idea what essence or emptiness was. So you put all this labor in trying to figure out something that's just there, you know, and that's all we're doing. That's once you get to the end of the path of awakening, as you begin to cross into the threshold of awakening, of enlightenment, right? You look back and say, this is all it was. Like, this was literally nothing. Nothing happened, but everything happened. There you go. Literally nothing has happened for me to get here. I've always been here. You are all at the threshold of enlightenment, right? But you have to go around the world and climb up that mountain and down that mountain and through the valley and over the river, you know, to get the point, you know, because a lot of that labor is about getting exhausted. You're exhausting this really active part of the mind, right? That's what sometimes practice is just getting really tired. So you're not like creating all of this. So you just like let it go. And once you just let the shit go, then you fall into the essence, right? But we have to wear ourselves out to get there, you know, and we all have to do it. And we all have to do it, right? And then when you get there, you're like, you're not resentful, like, you know, because you realize that, yeah, it's always been here, but I couldn't just acknowledge what was here. I had to go through all of this. I had to go through all these lifetimes of intense practice to realize I've always been home. That this has always been my home. I just never been able to recognize the experience before. Natural, easy, simple, but you have to earn that. You know, this is all contradictions. I hope you're following this. I'm just throwing out one contradiction after the other. It's really easy, but you're gonna have to work your ass off, right? You're already there, but you don't get it. You know, you should be practicing, but you can't take it seriously, right? And slowly, there's this like space that opens up, right? Which is just an experience. The space is an experience where you start getting it, but it doesn't make sense. But once you start getting it, you're no longer trying to make it make sense, right? It's an experience. The Heart Sutra is an experience that's not meant to be understood, right? Awakening, enlightenment is an experience that we can't describe, right? And you get into the space by short-circuiting all of this analytical stuff that we try to move through to try and make everything make sense. And that's when the path becomes really, well, someone looking at you begins to read you, you know, in a way that like will feel isolating, right? You know, over time, like you won't be able to contain or hide the ways in which awakening is beginning to dawn in you or awaken in you, I would say, right? You're going to be functioning on a different frequency, which will sometimes be at odds with so many people around you. You know? And that's why really advanced practitioners spend a lot of time alone, you know, isolated or whatever, right? Or when they show up in the world, they seem really irreverent, like really just out there. Because you've let go of the carceral logics of reality, right? And so you have a whole different set of rules that are just really about space and freedom and spontaneity, right? All right, so let's just move into this just a little more deeply, right? And allowing the body, the weight of the body to ground you, the seat under you, rising to hold you. And this is, a part of what it means to touch the earth, right? You want to touch the earth, you want to touch groundedness, solidity, foundation before you launch off into, these higher levels of consciousness. Because as the mind moves forward, the body is still here. Your body is still in the moment on the seat, right? And so if we allow ourselves to kind of ground like this, then it's easier for us to get back from these really higher abstract states of consciousness. Right? So in the space around us, I invite you just to begin to imagine all your benefactors beginning to appear, right? It's like being in space and being surrounded by stars, or all around you, under you, top of you, all around you. But those stars are the beings who love you, who want you to be free. And again, you don't have to know who these beings are, but just in your practice, in your mind, you're saying, welcome. And they begin to come into focus around you, radiating, right, this energy of care, which is the light that begins to, just gently awaken the space around you. So we're spending time just, again, imagining or having a conviction or a thought that your benefactors are filling up the space around you, just everywhere, top, bottom, all sides, like you're just surrounded in this sphere, this circle, not like a circle, but just a sphere of benefactors. And this gentle radiance of care that's beginning to fill the space around you. And you can sense it as light, you can maybe feel it as warmth, or you can just feel it as energy itself, right? And energy you know, the experience, the physical experience of energy just feels kind of dense. You know, there's a density here. Right, a little bit of warmth, whatever, however this is resonating with you. But this is the energy of deep care, which is love, is compassion, right? It's kindness. And this is for you, towards you. And so we begin to imagine that this energy of care begins to be slowly absorbed into our bodies. So we're getting really nice and saturated here with this energy of care. And of course, this is a point of the practice, this experience of absorbing, taking in care. This could be literally your practice for the rest of your life. This would be enough to do. But of course, we're going to go further. But just sitting and practicing, opening to the energy of care directed towards you is something, if we took really seriously, would completely transform every part of our life and really create, you know, this momentum, you know, driving us towards awakening. To feel love, to feel the care, and to feel it just in the very bottom of your feet to the very top of your head. You're like a balloon, right? That's filling up with air. You're just expanding, filling up, allowing that energy to take care of you, allowing yourself to float and everything that you struggle with, right? The suffering, the pain, allowing those experiences to float within the vastness of this care that you're absorbing and drinking deeply from. And sometimes I do like to imagine that I'm like thirsty, you know, not thirsty in a good way that we like to be thirsty, you know, out in the club, but like the kind of thirsty where you're just like dehydrated, you know, like I'm dehydrated. And so this care becomes like water that's like really tending to this experience of feeling dehydrated. So I'm drinking deeply. I'm drinking literally and metaphorically. So just a little bit more, just a few deep gulps of this energy of care. And slowly, want you to imagine that you slowly begin to transform into the bud of your favorite flower. I often like to think of myself as a very precious, precious rose. So I'm like this bud, right? And I have all these enclosed petals as well. And these petals are just expressions of who I am. These petals can be our identities, right? Or identity locations. There's a petal for my racial identity, ethnicity, gender, what have you. But these petals are just expressions of who I am in this relative sense in the material world. And slowly, and we're going to coordinate this next part with the mantra. As we begin the mantra practice, chanting the mantra, as you're chanting or listening, you begin to imagine that you're slowly beginning to bloom, that these petals of who you are begin to slowly, delicately unfold. And this is really important. So I want you to sit and think, oh, I'm a precious, beautiful, delicate flower. If you don't already think that about yourself. But for those of us who don't, I am a precious, delicate flower that's beginning to bloom as the energy of care, as I am absorbing and deeply drinking in the energy of care, which is creating, of course, the energy, which is the energy that allows me to bloom, but it's also creating this sense of safety. I feel safe enough to bloom in the radiance of this care, right? Radiated from beings who are always loving me, wanting me to be safe and free and happy. To essentially lean into the space to be our most authentic self in this moment. This is the blooming. And allowing the blessing of Medicine Buddha and Medicine Buddha's consciousness to facilitate this experience. All right. And then we'll do that, and then we'll move into prayer requests, and then shortly back into mantras, okay? So we'll begin. O te adong begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sunga te sua. Te adong begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sunga te sua. Te anam begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungante zoa. Te anam begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungante zoa. Te anam Deada Umbeganze Beganze Mahabeganze Razasumugande Zoa 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 Deada Umbeganze Beganze Mahabeganze And just turning our attention to the prayer requests. As we begin, just inviting, all of our sources of refuge into this space, all the deities, bodhisattvas, yet Dharma protectors, all beings of light, angels, celestial beings, all guardians and elemental beings connected to the physical elements, the land and air and fire and water and so forth. All the beings, including our ancestors as well, inviting all these beings into this space as we begin to offer these prayers, praying, asking these benevolent beings to work on our behalf to bring about the fruition of these prayers. We begin offering prayers for Shirley and her mom and her congregation as they navigate difficult time and loss. We pray for Julie, her gram, and their family. We pray for Vicky that her foot heals without incident. We pray for Jen and her father dealing with illness. We pray for all of us navigating the apocalypse as Saturn transits into Pisces and the containers that have been holding us dissolve. For SR, who is at the gates of transitioning into the bardo, that she may travel with ease and be free from pain, and may her spirit be free. We're offering prayers for all the nurses and frontline workers who are experiencing burnout from working the duration of the pandemic, who cannot access vital resources to take paid time off to help them heal and to recover from grief and burnout. May they access and find space and time and all the resources they need to heal. Offering prayers for all of us suffering under the ruthless system of extractive capitalism. Prayers for all the caregivers that when it comes time for them to receive care, it is offered as generously as it was given. Offering prayer for my own broken heart that it be the medicine I need for inner transformation and to bring my gifts into being. Offering prayers for Alan that he finds new work soon. Offering prayers for JB that he get help for his depression, and prayers for my daughter's chronic cough. Offering prayers for Gwen that the Mayo Clinic help him with his physical ailments. Offering prayers for T that he get into a college program that works for him. Offering prayers for lifelong connection and care for my daughter, my nibblings, and all of my living beloveds. Offering prayers for my ancestors, especially my paternal grandmother, Leona. May her name and truth be felt, acknowledged, and respected. Prayers for my vocational shift that it be soon and smooth and rewarding. Offering prayers for Claire that her despair may ease and she may find confidence in life and learn to set boundaries. Prayers for spaciousness during an intense week. Offering prayers for Jay as she moves forward with her husband's decline into dementia. Prayers of gratitude to my homecoming circle and spirit guides. A prayer for finally laying to rest the habits and embodiments that keep me trapped and harmful to others and myself. Prayers for my father as he confronts what is. Prayers for myself as I recover from COVID. May the healing be as quick and easy as possible. Prayers for myself as I navigate trust in my relationships, trust in myself. May I move at the speed of capacity of trust. May I trust that I will return again and again. Prayers for all who fear change. Prayers for youth and adults who are differently abled. Prayers for health and healing to keep them strong in themselves. For myself, experiencing Lyme disease and flare-up. Prayers for Patrick as he approaches a radical step in dealing with prostate cancer. Prayers for gratitude for the earth, and we can hear her a little bit better and honor her messages. Offering prayers for myself and others navigating grief, especially complicated grief, and our grief connected to trauma. Prayers for S, may he be protected and feel protected. Prayers for Anil for his journey in the Bardo. Prayers for Nina, Arishi. Prayers for Bhumima, for Lama Rod, Eric, and everyone involved with Bhumi Sparsha. Prayers for all beings in all realms at all times, for swift and complete healing and liberation. Prayers for me as I forge new patterns, mind my business, set boundaries, and maintain my Dharma practice in all that I do. I do not get pulled back into old ways and keep going toward what is in my best, and keep going towards what is in my best interest and well-being. Ashil. Prayers for Caitlin, who is dealing with the sudden loss of her father, Lawrence, after a long battle with alcoholism. May she feel love and miss the grief and tough family dynamics. Prayers for Jacqueline, who is also grieving the loss of her father from alcoholism. Prayers for Wendy recovering from surgery, and prayers for Mary as she prepares for her journey to her ancestral homeland. May her benevolent ancestors continue to guide her path. Prayers for me and my family while I continue looking for a full-time job. Offering prayers for all young people who are struggling with mental health, especially for those living in states that are passing laws to erase trans rights. Offering prayers for the family of 2021 Atlanta spa shooting victims and survivors of anti-Asian hate. Prayers for Demetrius as he awaits a hearing that determines his freedom from institutional confinement. May he be free, may he be at ease, and may he be well and safe from harm. Prayers for Lisa and Natalie as they go through chemotherapy. Offering prayers that my family and relationship can find a way to gel and become a refuge of care for all those involved. Prayers for Anne Bigwan that he may surrender to and fully accept the basic goodness in himself and all sentient beings in the world. May lean into his internal infinite haven. Prayers for Pauline, who recently transitioned into the spirit world. Prayers for Lama Rod, may he be safe, at peace, and at ease. And prayers for myself, healing for my body, and too many names to name for whom I'm praying. I continue to offer prayers for Khalil and Desiree and Adam, for Herschel Jr. and Herschel Sr. and for Sonova. I continue to offer prayers for Mike and for Erica as she and her family continue to open their brand new business venture. And I continue to pray just for all beings, that we all may be freed from systems of violence and trauma, that this world is liberated from the violence that we create for it, that we all may awaken to our innate Buddhahood, and awaken nature. We also continue to offer prayers for my nibblings, for all young people who are entering into and moving through adolescence. May they access all of the love and care, support, guidance, and protection that is available to them. Offering prayers for my Black, queer, and trans community, that we may continue to access joy and what we need to thrive. For DJ and Rob Raj, for Betty and Michelle, and Kaj and Susanna. And may we all be free as quickly and as soon as possible. So as we turn our attention back into our mantra practice, we can begin to imagine that as these blooming flowers that we begin to radiate this energy of care into the world. And this radiation, this radiance, it's not just energy and light, but you can imagine that this sweet fragrance of your bloom begins to radiate through the world. Like walking outside when everything's in bloom and like smelling the flowers, just like the world becomes perfumed in this fragrance that is nothing but the fragrance of awakening and emptiness and joy. What does our joy and liberation smell like? And can you radiate that scent into the world around you, into essentially the whole universe? We begin again. O Deada Beyenze, Beyenze, Ma Beyenze, Raja Sumo Gatesua. 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 Deada Beyenze, Beyenze, hada hum begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa te hada hum begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa te hada hum begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa te hada hum begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa te hada hum begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa te hada hum begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa te hada hum begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa te hada hum begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa te hada begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumagate zoa. And so turning our attention back to our benefactors around us, thanking them for their care, and imagining that they dissolve into white light, and that white light is absorbed into us as bloomed radiant flowers. And soon we begin to imagine ourselves as flowers slowly beginning to dissolve into white light. And that white light dissolving into emptiness itself, releasing our awareness to mingle with space and emptiness itself. Slowly we begin to re-arouse, coming back into the sensation of our bodies, coming specifically back to noticing the weight of our bodies, making contact with the seat under us, allowing that anchor to kind of bring us back into the moment, into this timeline, into the body, into the breath, and maybe moving through some simple movements, some stretches, some deep breaths to really just begin to reawaken the body after this journey. We shift our attention now to Sanjay Deva's prayer, which is already up, and we're going to recite this 3 times to finish our practice. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine. And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And lastly, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as the earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the varied beings that reach into the ends of space. All right. Cheers, everyone. Thank you all so much for your practice. Next week, I will not be here, but I will be here the following Monday. The book, I see some book comments. The book is coming out on Halloween. So that's exciting, but we've just beginning to plan the cover release and pre-sale this week, today actually. And so it's already on Amazon actually. It's just like the cover isn't up yet because the cover is still in process, but on Amazon, that all can change. This is like a placeholder. But if you go to Amazon or like books.com or like, some of the independent book sites as well, you'll see a description of the book as well. So I guess you can pre-buy it. You can buy it now, actually, but we haven't told people yet. Okay. Any other questions before we sign off? Anything come up for folks? Some of our Sangha down in Costa Rica with spring, doing ayahuasca. So I know a couple of people are there tonight. The mantra circle is Tibetan, is in Tibetan. Yeah, so new saints, from broken hearts to something. New saints from broken hearts to warriors, from broken hearts to warriors, something. Right, broken spiritual something. But yeah, we'll get the book cover up in a couple of weeks. All right, great, and I hope to see again some of you in Chicago at the end of the month. And that will be wonderful. I'll be in Toronto in June, for those of you who are in Toronto. I'll be at Wonderwell again in August, and I will do another retreat in New England in August as well. So stay tuned for that, and we will announce events as we get all the details in. So there will be some other things, and we have a whole list of local things here in Atlanta that we'll be doing beginning in May as well. So look out for that. So busy. Yeah, I'll come to the West Coast. I need to come to the West Coast. I need to come back to the Bay Area. There's a lot of fun that I've been missing in the Bay Area that I need to get back to. When I say fun, people. When I say people, I mean, people. People are fun. Y'all are fun. Okay, I think that's it. I don't know if anything else is happening this week. I will be away again, doing some work. I'll see you the week after next. Okay, after Chicago. Actually, I'll see you after Chicago. All right. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric, for holding the space. Thank you again to all the teachers, practice leaders who are stepping in to hold space. I will see some of you. I may see some of you in small group tomorrow if you sign up with me. Okay. All right. Bye, everyone. Much love.